What's up, everybody? David Yakir here for iHeartRadio's Yak About, a boomer's GPS guide to life. So if you're familiar with the years 46 to 64, then this is the place you want to be. So put your headphones on, go for a run, and listen as we yak about. Hey, what's up, everybody? David here for Yak About Today. On this broadcast, we yak about life, health, technology, politics, pretty much anything that will help you be better, healthier, and more informed than any generation that came before. And I really want to welcome you to Season 3 of Yak About. And with me today is Tanya Ortega Cowan, and I'm hoping...
Hello. Yes.
Tanya,
what are you hoping?
I'm hoping that I see you across the table all the time.
Well, me too. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I can't wait. We've got a great new season coming up. Season 3. Could you believe it?
Wow.
So, I wanted to sort of talk about Season 3 because it's an all new season, and there are so many different things about it, including you on a regular basis, that really will make
I'm your steady.
Oh, I'm so happy. I am so happy.
And you know when you make it to Season 3, you've really made it.
That's right. We've really made it.
Yes.
We're still here. You know, I don't know if you remember when I first started doing radio, when I first got down here, it was because I was a guest on another radio show, and that's sort of how we met.
Yep.
When we met, and when I did my first couple of episodes, I realized that this wasn't for me. I would listen to them, and I go, "Really?"
Well, we are our own worst critics.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true. So,
but obviously, it was for you because here you are in season 3.
And each year we have changed. So the first thing I do want to talk about is the change in actually the name of the show. So for longtime listeners, people know that we started the show, and the reason the show existed is because as a guest on another show, I was asked a lot of questions about technology, because technology was my background. And it was suggested to me that we do a show about tech, and in particular, a show about tech that would help people, mostly the wiser and more mature people, with technology questions. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't so much always about technology as it was about, talking to your cable company, or, buying a plan, or helping with people using their mobile device, that type of thing. So we did a lot, especially in the first year.
Right, practical things, not like building a computer.
And then, exactly. So what started to take place that where we started to see what we could do and what we couldn't do was a lot in technology you have to show. So we started mixing up the show with YouTube and doing demonstrations on YouTube to show people, how to use their apps or how to use things. Mm-hmm. And it became apparent that it was easier for us, to do it where we can show things and demonstrate than just pure radio where people are out there listening in their car. So we started expanding the show. The second thing that happened was as the demographics came in, we realized that we had a more mature demographic. And the show was getting very popular among that demographic. So what we did was start expanding. And we started started talking to people who were relevant about, topics that were relevant to them. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden, we sort of little by little dropped the tech off of the Yak About, and we had, we just called it Yak About.
Well, it gives you more flexibility.
That's right. Then something else, an interesting thing happened after last season.
Season 2,
where somebody wrote to me online and say, "Look, I'm in my 80s and I listen to your program weekly, and what I'm really interested in what I can do today, since I'm not sure how many more years." And I thought that was really interesting. And I said, from now on, we'll yak about today. And so the name sort of made its rounds, and everybody picked up on it, and everybody said, you know,
Nice.
that's nice. So we are Yakabout today. The second thing that happened was each year, because we were a technology show, in our first year, we were confined specifically to our studio. You know, we'd go to the studio and you'd see hundreds of thousands of dollars of recording equipment around.
Lots of technology.
Lots of technology. They'd put the mic in front of you. Your producer would be
touch the
sitting.
mic.
Exactly. Your producer's sitting right at the console, and everybody's giving you directions, and every place you look, there's technology. And the great thing that we implemented the first year in our local broadcast markets was we were able to get really great interviews because we had them built in the Skype capability. So I was able to interview people from around the world, and we had some really interesting interviews. The second thing that happened in season 2 on the technology front,
Season 2, part 2.
season 2, part 2, was that we were able to build a home studio. And the great thing about building a home studio was that I wasn't at the mercy of the calendar of the studio. Or so if somebody interesting was able to talk to me and all of a sudden they couldn't get online until 11 or 12 at night, I was able to sit down and just record the interview. So that was season 2. Now for the introduction of season 3.
Dun, dun, dun.
The technology. So, season 3, what we've done during our hiatus is actually take what was once, you know, a mega $100,000 studio, right? And which we then brought it to our home. But now we've mobilized it.
We're mobile.
We are
Mobile and global.
So to give you an example of how advanced technology is for us and how we use technology, there are now programs and portable units. So I have a portable mixer that runs on batteries, that's small, handheld, right? 2 microphones, and the iPad.
The iPad.
Now, everybody who listens to the show knows how I feel about the iPad.
You love it.
I do. I think it's the ultimate, you know, call it what you want, a tablet computer.
You put it under your pillow at night, don't you?
I do. I hold it, I shine it up, and I
Yeah.
use my eyeglass cleaner for,
Whisper sweet nothings.
you know. But it's got such an extraordinary capability now, and I'll do a whole show on this and why most people don't need computers anymore. And really, they can do everything between their phone and an iPad. And the only difference is screen space. You know, the power that and capability of an iPad is now the newer iPads, to give you an example, are as powerful or more powerful than the actual computers that we're using.
I did not know
Right.
that.
And especially the new iPhones that have been released. They've been benchmarking them, and they are really so extraordinarily powerful that you're walking around with, you know, a whole world's worth of computing power from 10 years ago in your pocket. So we'll be talking about that. But the technology changed for us, and it gave us the portable studio.
You could even go to New York City with it if you want, huh?
Speaking of New York City,
If I can make it there.
so if you're a follower of this show and you follow us on Facebook and Twitter or LinkedIn, you saw that we posted a big sort of poster saying Yak About Today, New York City, October 6th through 16th.
Woo.
So we will be recording several shows, you know, up in New York.
You're taking your apple to the Big Apple.
I am taking the apple to the Big Apple. So that's sort of on the surface, but there is one other major change, and this is probably the most significant. And that is that there is a difference now between the podcast and the show that you listen to online and the broadcast. You see, previously, because we started in broadcast in the traditional radio stations in several markets in Florida, it was obvious that we had to sort of design the entire show to meet the exact, you know,
Time constraints.
the time constraints, right? But this year,
In season 3.
In season 3. And I'll tell you why the season 3 is really important in a minute. But now we have built such an extraordinary audience, not only around the country, but around the world, that it was time to start designing these shows for the podcasts themselves. So what that means is that, first of all, it's unlimited. So if we have a conversation going, I don't have to stop the conversation. I don't have to run a commercial at a specific time, but we can continue the conversation, and as long as it runs, it runs. Or if we have several interviews. So normally you have a half-hour show on broadcast, or you've got an hour show on broadcast. You know, we may have a light show one day, and it could be 20 minutes, or we could have an hour, hour and a half, show that really is consequential and has content that we think is worth the time. So what we're going to do is actually design the show, which means for broadcast, many times we may be in the middle of the conversation and
cliffhanger.
And yes, and we'll have to stop it for the broadcast, but you will be directed to go someplace. So while we're talking, you may hear something like this.
For more of our conversation, go online to yakabout.today. That's yakabout.today, where you can listen uninterrupted to our entire broadcast.
Okay.
And I noticed that's not .com, it's not .org, it's .today.
And that's something relatively new to the internet, is that we have extensions that are not .com, .net, .org. There are now .tv, .today. There are other extensions.
Did we run out of .coms, or why is that, or just variety?
No, what really happened is that there are certain words that are appropriate to different industries. And in fact, if you're a very rich industry, you can sit there and go, yakabout.tanya. Right? If you could afford, the 100,000 or 200,000 to make a Tanya extension. Anyway, we're about 12 and a half minutes in. So for the broadcast audience, I really want to talk about the people who made this possible. Hey guys, I want to talk about New Vision Eye Center. I often tell you that the show is sponsored by New Vision Eye Center, but what you don't know is that I've been a patient and under the care of New Vision Eye Center for the last 4 years. And I can tell you honestly, what sets them apart wasn't just that they are great doctors. It was the way the doctors and staff cared for me that made the difference. So take my word for it and go see Dr. Minotti, Reinauer, Tate, O'Brien, and the rest of the New Vision Eye Center team, because I wouldn't trust my eyes to anyone else. And now we're back with Tanya.
I know you didn't mean it, but it seemed like that was my theme song.
I know.
I really like it.
I know.
It's dreamy.
And again, we're a little glitchy here, I think, because this is really our first time actually recording the entire show.
People are forgiving.
Using the technology. So just to explain, and we could post a picture of it at some point. We'll put it on Facebook, but we'll sort of show the setup that we're dealing with, our portable setup. And so for the first time without a producer, we're actually running the board, which when we're in a studio, the producer usually does. It's usually Sally or Wayne, and they sit at the board and they run all the commercials and they run the music and they make everything happen like magic. In this case, we've got everything sort of in our carts on the iPad.
At your fingertips.
At our fingertips, but that means I have to walk and chew gum at the same time.
You'll get there. You're doing a good job.
Right. The other thing I want to talk about is you.
Cue the theme song. I love it.
Yeah. So what'll happen is that we'll partner on our regular broadcasts, and then you'll be bringing features, that will be feature, because I know that the audience down in our markets, our broadcast markets, know who you are. because, you're a journalist, you're a photographer. In fact, if there's somebody singing someplace in the area, it's usually you. That's right. So everybody knows, I think it was Sally that actually said to me, she's very well respected in this area.
Nice.
So
I better watch what I say then online here. I don't want to lose that.
But we're particularly interested in the journalistic part.
Yes. Thank you.
And you're working on several interesting stories.
Positive human interest stories.
Yeah, one which, has, not always happy endings, some of them. And I believe you're working on one with the hurricanes, which seem to be never ending in our part of the world. So,
do you want me to talk about that?
You can tell us the type of stories you'll bring, and examples and that type of thing.
They really range. The core of it is positive human interest stories. So, I think we need good news and of people doing wonderful things. It ranges, like, for example, last week I had a story about this young lady. Her name is Jasmine. She's 12 years old, and she's won the Miss Florida preteen. She's Miss Florida preteen, and it's not a regular pageant where, for example, they're not allowed to wear makeup. It's all based on character and community service and that type of thing. And what really makes it special is that this young lady, when she was not even born, she was 6 months along in her mom, and her mom had to leave an abusive situation that was potentially really fatal. She took her 2 little boys and her pregnant Jasmine and left and went to Safe Space. Safe Space is an amazing organization. Anyway, long story short, the community really throughout the years supported this family, and of course they worked hard themselves. There's no handouts, but it's just a real success story of a community coming together, including the Boys and Girls Clubs, youth guidance, major impact on Jasmine. And so now she's on her way to California to compete to be Miss Florida preteen. And she's really an example of a quality person. And like I said, it's not about beauty, it's about inner beauty, although she's very beautiful physically.
Right.
But and she's against bullying. She'll often find girls in the bathroom at school eating their lunch because they were bullied and they were afraid to go out, and so she'll befriend them. And this happened several times. It's amazing. Anyway, and then so it ranges.
And how old is she now?
She's 12. She's 12 years old. Wow. 12. And then I'm working on a story, also a family from Vero Beach, Florida, where we are broadcasting from right now. Mm-hmm. Their daughter, she grew up here as well, but anyway, she moved to St. John about 15 years ago. That's in the Virgin Islands. And of course, Irma came through there as a Category 5. And she and 17 other people, including children and 5 dogs, rode out the storm in Kenny Chesney's laundry room. He's a real friend to everyone on the island there. And of course for those of you that don't know, he's a very famous country music star. Mm-hmm. And he's been a real leader in helping the Virgin Islands through this. Well, so I sat down with her family on the eve of Maria, another Category 5 hurricane that was about to hit them again. And so she did. Her name is Mandy. She did evacuate for that, but they tell of the story of when she's in the laundry room and they had bolted the door to the laundry room, out to the regular house shut with plywood, and Kenny Chesney had 200-mile-per-hour hurricane windproof windows. They all blew out.
Hurricane proof.
Yes, 200-mile-per-hour. They blew out, and they could hear all this happening from the laundry room. And you know how small a laundry room is. I'm sure Kenny Chesney probably had a very nice big laundry room, but it's still a laundry room. Right. And so then as all of the pressure was building in the house with the windows blown, they could actually see the bolts coming out one by one, like shaking loose. boom, out of the plywood protecting them. So then for the next 5 hours, it took 5 men holding this giant mattress against the door hole opening to protect them. So this went on. And then, they had a generator running. And so they did have power, but then the flooding began. So the water started rising. And of course, they're afraid to be electrocuted. So now they're all climbing up on the laundry, the washing machines and this type of thing. But they survived it. Wow. And anyway, so our locally they're doing a drive. Anyway, I'm probably talking too much.
No, it's all right. I sort of this is a perfect example. We'll continue talking.
Yes.
Right? But right now I have to wrap it up for the radio audience, and then we'll continue the conversation. So thank you. I so look forward to this season.
Me too. Season 3.
And even though we're wrapping up for you guys on the broadcast, remember you can always go to yakabout.today to listen to the rest of our conversation. But right now, got to say adieu.
Adieu.
If you are new here and listening to any of the podcasting systems that carry us, consider subscribing. And if you're listening to us via radio, put it on your calendar and set it for iHeartRadio's Waxy 107.9 FM and 1370 AM at 3 p.m. on Mondays, or Real Radio's 101.7 FM at 9:30 p.m. on Saturdays. And remember, we can also be found on iHeartRadio.com and all the major social networks such as Facebook, Twitter, and Google+, and of course, YouTube. Just search for Yak About Today or Yak About Tech. Follow us on Twitter at YakAboutToday and write to us at yakabouttoday@gmail.com. And if you like us that much, download the Yak About mobile apps on both the Apple App Store or Google Play Store. And remember, our goal is to bring you a listening experience that will help you be better, healthier, and more informed than any generation before. This has been a Dig It production.
What's up, everybody? David Yakir here for iHeartRadio's Yak About, a boomer's GPS guide to life. So if you're familiar with the years 46 to 64, then this is the place you want to be. So put your headphones on, go for a run, and listen as we yak about.